ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधि साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि सद्गुरुं नमामि. Warm greetings to all. It is my pleasure to be a part of the 60 lecture series on Indian knowledge systems organized by the Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai in its Diamond Jubilee Year celebration, that is Hirakotsav. I thank the Department of Sanskrit for giving me an occasion to be a part of the lecture series. I would like to share some material with you. The topic of the present talk is Yogavasishta revisited in the light of Advaita Vedanta. Yogavasishta revisited in the light of Advaita Vedanta. The Yogavasishta is traditionally considered to be a treatise of Advaita Vedanta. However, it is not included in the authoritative sources of Advaita Vedanta tradition, that is the Prasthanatraya, the compositions of Gaudapada and Shankara, and the post-Shankara compositions. Moreover, the title contains the word yoga, and it is expected that it may contain some references to yoga sadhana. The Yoga Vasishta is nonetheless a philosophical work, but couched in a mystic framework than the rather terse philosophical arguments. The work is known by various names such as Arsha Ramayana, Maharamayana, Jnana Vasishta, Vasishta Ramayana, and Vasishta. The Yoga Vasishta is a unique work on philosophy, catering to the needs of all, the elite as well as laymen alike. The work serves as a guide to those aspirants who are desirous of liberation and are in need of proper guidance. The subtle philosophical concepts are dealt with in such a manner which not only satisfies the brain but consoles the heart. The Yoga Vasishta is a voluminous work containing about 32,000 verses and is written in the Kavya style. It contains intricate theories about the nature of world, its creation from Brahman, the path leading to liberation, etc. The subtle philosophical concepts are explained in a very lucid style with the help of stories and illustrations and contains untiring repetitions to facilitate an easy understanding of the text. Date of Yoga Vasishta. Traditionally, Yoga Vasishta is considered to be written by Sage Valmiki as an appendage to the Ramayana. Sage Bharadwaja inquired from God Brahma about the knowledge which will liberate mankind from the pangs of worldly transmigration, upon which Brahma, along with Bharadwaja, approached Valmiki. Brahma advised Valmiki to complete his story of Ramayana by adding an appendage to it which will benefit mankind. However, the modern researchers have attempted to fix the date of Yoga Vasishta within a very wide bracket, right from the times of Valmiki to as recent as the 13th century. To ascertain the date of Yoga Vasishta is not an easy task. There are strong reasons to presume that the Yoga Vasishta might have existed prior to Gaudapada and Shankara. The critical argumentative style found in the works of Gaudapada and Shankara is not found in the Yoga Vasishta. The similarities between the verses of Yoga Vasishta and classical Sanskrit literature after the times of Shankara do not take the date of Yoga Vasishta after the times of Shankara. There are equal chances of either the Yoga Vasishta or classical Sanskrit literature borrowing from the other. Though the Yogavasishta contains Shaiva doctrines, that does not take Yogavasishta to a posterior date. Shaiva philosophy is a sufficiently ancient one. Both Gaudapada and Shankara feeling the necessity to take a note of Shaiva philosophy proves the antiquity of Shaiva doctrine. Though the Shaiva Trika system of Kashmir, which is of a much later time period, that is about 1000 CE, is referred in the Yoga Vasishtha, this does not prove the posterity of Yoga Vasishtha. There are equal chances that the Trika system may well have borrowed from the Yoga Vasishtha. Thus, it can be safely presumed that the date of Yoga Vasishtha may be before the times of Gaudapada and Shankara and after Kalidasa, that is about 6th century, 6th century CE. Since the date of Yoga Vasishtha is not definitely ascertainable, the author is also uncertain since the author naturally changes with the date. The present edited version of Yoga Vasishtha, containing 32,000 verses, contains a mention of one Brahmananda, whom the author of Yoga Vasishtha pays a tribute at the beginning as well as at the end of the work. Hence, the author may well have been a disciple of Brahmananda. However, nothing much is known about this Brahmananda. Arrangement of Yoga Vasishtha. The Yoga Vasishtha is divided into 6 prakaranas or sections. These are Vairagya Prakarana, Mumukshu Vyavahara Prakarana, Utpatti Prakarana, Sthiti Prakarana, Upashama Prakarana, and Nirvana Prakarana. The first two prakaranas are rather short. The first prakarana describes the doubts and dilemma of Rama and his subsequent detachment. The second prakarana deals with the importance of ardent efforts backed by strong determination to achieve success. The philosophical issues actually begin from the third prakarana. Though the prakaranas are named as Utpatti, Sthiti, etc., a systematic order is not followed in explaining the philosophical concepts. The theories of creation of world from Brahman, the nature of world, concepts such as ignorance and knowledge, bondage and liberation, means to knowledge, path of liberation, etc., are explained from the third prakarana onwards in every prakarana. The Yoga Vasishtha is almost untiring in its repetition. The same questions are asked and answered with only a slight change of emphasis and explanations, and with ample stories and anecdotes to, to amply highlight the intricate concepts. These repetitions are helpful to the aspirant. He gets so many occasions to understand, revise, and memorize. However, the modern researcher is rather confused in reading such a complex text since he expects a systematic classification of the philosophical concepts, epistemology, metaphysics, and soteriology, and that too in a proper sequence. In this presentation, an attempt is made to understand the important philosophical concepts of the Yoga Vasishtha. Dialogue between Rama and Vasishtha. The entire Yoga Vasishtha consists of the dialogue between Rama and Vasishtha. The setting of Yoga Vasishtha is almost the same as in the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is in a very dejected mood. He has no enthusiasm to participate in the war and fulfill his assigned duty. Instead, he entertains a desire to spend his time in peaceful contemplation. Similarly, in the Yoga Vasishtha, Rama is also in a very dejected mood. He has no enthusiasm even to carry out his daily activities and remains complacent in his own mood. But there is one major difference. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna seeks advice of God Krishna, whereas here in the Yogavasishta, it is God Rama, an incarnation of God Vishnu, who is seeking the advice of Sage Vashishtha. The Yogavasishta begins with the history of Rama and describes that it is due to the influence of a curse that Rama is born as a mortal being and forgets his innate divinity for some time. Leaving apart the story of curse, it would suffice to say that Yogavasishta adopts the methodology of a dialogue in expounding its philosophical doctrines. The doubts asked by Rama provides a background for Vasishtha to impart his philosophical teachings. A simple question is raised, and in its answer, subtle philosophical issues are articulated and addressed. Dilemma of Rama. The philosophical problem is described in the form of mental condition of Rama, and a solution is offered through which a person can attain liberation, which is considered the final aim of all endeavors in the Indian tradition. Only a small beginning part of the story of Ramayana is mentioned in the Yogavasishta. Sage Vishwamitra approaches King Dasharatha to seek Rama's help in warding off the enemies that were disturbing his sacrificial worship. In the original Ramayana, Rama immediately expresses his desire to go with sage Vishwamitra. It is King Dashratha who is not willing to allow Rama to go alone with sage Vishwamitra, since Rama, being of a very tender age, his fatherly affection prevented him. But here in the Yoga Vasishta, it is just the opposite. Rama is hesitant and is in a very dull mood. Upon asked by sage Vishwamitra and Vasishtha, and also by his own father King Dasharatha, Rama elaborately explains his own mental condition and his doubts. Rama is anxious to see the vanities of the world and the human engrossments. He states that nothing is permanent. Time devours everything. The pleasures and comforts of life do not last long. The pleasures are themselves pains in disguise and give rise to an unending chain of desires. Accumulation of wealth can give all material comforts, but still man is not satisfied. His desires keep changing. Mind is always unsteady, and it is even easier to empty an ocean than to have absolute control over mind. Rama further states that he does not find any interest in discharging his worldly duties and desires to remain quiet in meditation. He desires to seek that state of permanence which is free from limitation, error, delusion, etc., and that state which can give everlasting peace. He expresses his earnest desire that he wants to devote his entire life in search of that supreme felicity and tranquility which will alleviate all sufferings of human life. Preliminary qualifications of an aspirant. Thus, from the questions of Rama, it is evident that a person who is aware of his ignorance, who is aware of the transitory nature of the world, and yet is not able to find a solution, is alone suitable for the teachings of Yoga Vasishta. The Yoga Vasishta is not meant for people engrossed in worldly life, since they are not prepared to receive its teachings. At the same time, the Yoga Vasishta is also not meant for the liberated ones, since they have already achieved the state which Yoga Vasishta aims to achieve. In tune with the four preliminary qualifications mentioned by Shankara for the inquiry into Brahman, the Yoga Vasishta mentions four gatekeepers of liberation. These are Santosha, contentment, Sadhu Sangha, company of the virtuous, Vichara, ratiocination or discrimination, that is discriminative knowledge, discrimination between Atman and Anatman, and Shama, that is quietism or tranquility. Every one of these four is separately the leader of the remaining three, and hence one should attempt to achieve at least one of these through which he automatically attains the remaining. Concept of mind in the Yoga Vasishta. This is a very important concept of the Yoga Vasishta. Mind is a central concept around which the entire philosophy of the Yoga Vasishta revolves. Mind has tremendous powers. It is omnipotent and has creative powers. The mind is free to create a world as it desires. We all get in accordance with our thoughts. As the mind thinks, so the world appears to us. The attitude of mind is important and not the physical world in which we live. The world around us changes as the thoughts change. Time and space are also relative to our thoughts. An ailing man, that is a sick man, feels that time is long, while time spent in joy appears to be very short. A small place is also sufficient for one whose mind is steady. Otherwise, a big mansion is also not sufficient for him. The perceptions are tainted by the way in which we think. The mind is the maker of happiness or misery. The external world does not make us happy unless our mind participates in it. Even bondage and liberation are states of mind. The objective world is the projection of one's own mind and its desires. One's own body is the creation of mind and can be changed by the right attitude of mind. The desires of the body are also due to the functionings of the mind. Diseases originate and thrive in the body due to a disturbed mind. These diseases can be cured by right thinking. Most of the diseases in the modern times are due to stress and the undue imaginations of the mind. Suffering is due to wrong attitude of mind. The harmony of mind brings in happiness. Thus, all sufferings, limitations, ignorance, bondage, etc., is due to mind, and liberation can be achieved by right thinking and ratiocination. That is the power of discrimination. Creation of the world. According to the Yoga Vasishta, Brahman is the ultimate reality, non-dual, one without a second. The entire universe is one substance. In that, there is no second in name, form, and activity. Brahman is unborn, undecaying, without any beginning, eternal, permanent, auspicious, free from all impurities, without any form, the cause of all causes, but itself without a cause. Pulsation of Brahman gives rise to the world. The Yogavasishta gives a very interesting story, the story of Akashaja, to describe creation of the world from Brahman. There was a Brahmana by name Akashaja who always stayed peaceful and delighted in his own mood. He lived long and was always alert and beautiful in the welfare of others. Death could not devour him. Yama, the god of death, said to his messenger that it is the acts of the individual beings alone that are responsible for their destruction. The messenger of death traveled far and wide but could not find a single act of Akashaja that will result in his death. Akashaja, as the name suggests, is born out of Akasha. He do not have any past karma due to which he takes birth and assumes a physical body. Since Akashaja is born out of empty space, he is pure vacuous being having no material form, and all his activities become null and void. He is thus self born, that is, born without a cause. He remains in his formless being, disowning any material body composed of earth and other gross elements. Vasishtha uses this story to bring home the point that the self-born Brahma or Prajapati, like the Brahmana Akashaja, is born from Brahman, pure, formless, vacuous principle, and is manifested in the vacuous sphere of his own intellect. Brahma appears to have a personal form, a physical body, while in reality he has no body. His body is composed of the mind alone and has no connection with material substance. There is pulsation in the pure non-dual Brahma. This gives rise to God Brahma, the cosmic mind. Since Brahma does not have any physical form, the form of Brahma is equated with the cosmic mind. The world originates from the cosmic mind. The world created by Brahma is as null and void as the son of a barren woman. As the mind of a painter is fraught with images of various kinds, so is the mind of Brahma full of figures of all created beings. Through his Sankalpa Shakti, that is volitive power, Brahma creates the variegated world consisting of many animate and inanimate entities. Thus, the world is an imagination of Brahma or the divine mind. The individuals and the world imagined by Brahma are perceived as real by the individuals themselves who live in this world and partake the dream of Brahma. Thus, the world has a relative existence. It is real to all those individuals who are the products of the dream of Brahma. An individual believes that he is born and he lives in this world. He has his own mind and sankalpa shakti. Through his power, he creates a world consisting of innumerable entities. Each of these individuals in the second world possess minds and further create their own worlds, and the process continues ad infinitum. Thus, there is an endless succession of worlds within. This is a very complicated theory. When one tries to philosophically analyze the above theories of the creation of the world, it is obvious that the creation of the world is quite analogous to that of Advaita Vedanta. Brahman creates the world out of itself, just as the spider weaves its own web. The analogy of a spider is also used in the Yogavasishta. The same analogies are used in the Yogavasishta as in Advaita Vedanta to describe Brahman and the origination of world from Brahman. But the overemphasis in the Yogavasishta on the world being null and void takes one farther to the unreality of the world, and one tries to read the Buddhist elements of subjective idealism within it. However, one has to guard against reading too many similarities. The world is definitely imagined to be like the son of a barren woman, castles in air, etc., in the Yogavasishta. But that does not lead to nihilism. Brahman is the basis and the cause of everything. Brahman is non dual, one without a second. The world has a relative existence only for those who have not realized the non dual Brahman. Thus, it is obvious that the Yoga Vasishtha is describing the existence par excellence, the Paramarthika Satta, the word used by Adi Shankaracharya, the Paramarthika Satta, and hence describes the world as null and void. Thus, it is on the higher level, it is on the level of existence par excellence that the world is said to be null and void according to the Yoga Vasishtha. Seven states of ignorance. As in the Advaita Vedanta, the Yoga Vasishtha describes that bondage is due to ignorance. All the worlds in which we live are the imaginations of the mind entrapped in the cycle of birth and death due to beginningless vision, that is, beginningless ignorance. The world in which we live is perceived to be real. The dream experiences, the experiences of past or future lives are not perceived as real. Just as upon waking, the dream experiences come to an end, but they are real to a person till he is in the dream state. Similarly, the waking state experiences are also real till he is in that state and ceases to be real upon Brahman realization. The Yoga Vasishtha enumerates seven states of ignorance. These are Bija Jagrata, the first state. This is the state of cognition, the ever waking embryonic seed of all. The first state, wherefrom world is created from Brahma. It is the primal seed of the waking state. Jagrata. The Jagrata is the waking state in which the individuals created by Brahma live and develop their individual personality as separate from Brahma. Mahajagrata. This is the intense waking state which consists in the firm belief that I am such a one and this thing is mine by virtue of any merits in this or in previous birth. Jagrata Swapna. The imaginary castle building of daydreamers is this state. It is the cognition of one thing in place of another due to a certain bias or due to error, as the sight of two moons in place of one, water in marriage, etc. Swapna. It is a state which is perceived as unreal upon waking. The reality of this state is doubted on account of its being of a very short duration. Swapna Jagrata. It is the waking dream state in which things long seen in a dream but lasting as remembrance in mind are believed to be real. It is experienced during the living state and it is also experienced at death, as for example, viewing one's own body left behind after death. Sushupti. This state is the torpid state of the living person who is in sound sleep. It is a state which is capable of feeling future pleasures and pains. These seven states of ignorance are according to the Yoga Vasishtha. Thus, unlike the Advaita Vedanta tradition, which describe three states of consciousness in the state of ignorance, that is Swapna, that is Jagrata, Swapna, and Sushupti. The fourth state being the highest transcendental consciousness, which is the state of knowledge. Thus, we have the four states of consciousness in the Advaita Vedanta. The three states are the states of ignorance, that is, Jagrata, Swapna, and Sushupti. And these three states of ignorance, the Yoga Vasishtha describes not three, but the seven states of ignorance. Liberation according to Yoga Vasishtha. As stated earlier, the mind is the cause of bondage and liberation. The pulsating mind, due to its own desires and ideas, creates a world around him and gets entangled in it. It is only when a person becomes free from all desires and imaginations, when the functionings and activities of the mind cease, that he can get rid of sufferings and attain everlasting peace and bliss. Mind, chitta, and its pulsation, chitta spanda, are inseparable and coexist like flame and fire, oil and sesame seeds, etc. The destruction of one automatically leads to the destruction of the other. When the mind ceases to vibrate, it ceases to be mind. This extinguishing of the mind, manonasha or chittanasha, is brought about in two ways according to the Yoga Vasishtha, through yoga and through jnana. Yoga is the suppression of vrittis, modifications or pulsations of chitta. That is, yoga is chitta vritti nirodha, suppression or the stoppage of vrittis. And jnana is the realization of Brahman through rational investigation. The vibration of prana gives force to the internal organs of body. This gives rise to desires and feelings in the chitta, and the chitta vibrates. The prana can be controlled through rigorous yoga techniques, and a state of kumbhak, suppression of breath, is realized. Thus, the vibrations of prana are suspended, resulting into the dissolution of the mind. Upon destruction of mind, there is the destruction of world idea. The aspirant realizes the nullity of world, becomes free from all attachments as regards his body and the external world, and rejoices in his own pure consciousness. He realizes Brahman and becomes Brahman. This is the path of yoga as described in the Yoga Vasishtha. The path of jnana described in the Yoga Vasishtha consists of a long practice of reflection that the world is created due to imaginations of the mind. Through such discriminative thinking, the mind ceases to function, resulting into the suspension of breath, that is prana, and thereby all worldly activities. The aspirant realizes Brahman when there is complete destruction of the imaginations of mind. Seven states of knowledge according to the Yoga Vasishtha. The Yoga Vasishtha describes seven stages in which an aspirant proceeds on the path of knowledge. These are called the Sapta Jnana Bhu. These are Shubhecha. The aspirant develops the desire to do good, arising out of detachment, and desires the knowledge of Shastras in the company of noble persons. The second one is Vicharana. Vicharana means discrimination. It arises in the company of wise men, study of Shastras, habitual aversion towards the world. Tanu Manasa. Tanu Manasa is the subduing of the mind and restraining it from worldly enjoyments. Sattvapan. It is the reliance on one's own self and dependence on divine self, the Atman as the true refuge. Asansakti. Asansakti means detachment. It is the complete detachment and indifference towards the world. Padartha bhavana. It is padartha abhavana, and that is why it is the sandhi through the conjunction of sandhi. It is padartha bhavana. Otherwise, it is padartha abhavana. Padartha means the entity, and abhavana means does not attach itself to the objects. The aspirant becomes free from all alien thoughts about all worldly objects, both internal and external. Through the continuous inquiry about the entities of the world, the aspirant attains true knowledge. And then comes the last stage. After passing through all these 6 stages, then comes the last state of knowledge in the Saptadhyana Bhumi, and that is Turyaga. This is the final state of realization in which all ignorance is dispelled and the aspirant rejoices in Atma. This is the state of liberation in this very life when one is living, and this is also called as the Jivan Mukta, the state of liberation while one is still alive. The Yogavasishta describes the state of a Jivan Mukta, a state of living liberated. A Jivan Mukta has nothing to desire and attain. All his longings are subdued and sublimated. He attains a state of perfect tranquility. Here the Yoga Vasishta warns the aspirant not to be lethargic but should continue to attend his own duties as before, but now in a detached manner. Realization and mystic experience cannot and should not be an excuse of running away from one's own duties. The Yoga Vasishta censures and abhors a person who runs away from his duties. One must develop ratiocination, strive to be one with Brahman, be always in the meditative mood, but the aspirant must always be alert and faithful in the performance of the duties. One should not run away from the duties, as the Yoga Vasishta again and again reaffirms this. Vasishta gives the example of King Janaka in this context and instructs Rama to diligently perform his duty. Janaka performed his duties well as a king and strived strenuously and continuously for the welfare of his subjects with a detached mind. Adopting the methodology of a dialogue, the Yoga Vasishta, though dealing with intricate philosophical issues, is not lost in the mire of dry philosophizing, but has digested the knowledge and applied it to the problems of life, to the problems of human life. It is through the faithful performance of one's own duties that can lead to realization. And even after realization, one has to continue with the assigned duties. The Yoga Vasishta again and again reiterates and underlines this fact that one should continuously perform one's own duties, and the state of realization or the state of liberation, this state of Jivan should not and does not prevent him from performing his duty. Conclusion. We come to the last part of our presentation. The Yoga Vasishta, in tune with the Advaita Vedanta, analyzes the intricate philosophical issues. It is a philosophical text. The Yoga Vasishta is a philosophical text dealing with the nature of world, the nature of bondage and liberation, and other issues of speculative philosophy. However, the manner of exposition is different. The terse philosophical arguments are avoided and a narrative style is adopted in the form of a dialogue between Sage Vashishtha and Rama. The Advaita philosophy is presented in the form of stories and analogies with slight difference. But nonetheless, the emphasis is on realization of Brahma and continuing one's own assigned duties even after liberation. One finds a strong undercurrent of the Advaita Vedanta philosophy ingrained in the philosophy of Yoga Vasishtha.